So can a deal to end this war really get done? John Herbst is the senior director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center and a former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine. It's great to have you here. And, my understanding going into this call was that Russia hasn't budged on what it wants, which is all the territory, those kind of 4 zones that it wants. Ukraine doesn't want to give that up. And then they've launched this barrage over the weekend, Russia has, which seems to indicate they can do what they want here.
Moscow has no interest in ending the fighting. Moscow hopes that President Trump will decrease American support for Ukraine and that Russia will be able to take additional Ukrainian territory beyond the territory he currently claims. He wants to have effective political control of Ukraine, which means he needs to take several more Ukrainian major cities, including Odessa and the capital, Kyiv, and Kharkiv as well, the second largest city in Ukraine. I think the phone call today did nothing to move towards the Trump objective of a durable peace.
So the former Vice President Mike Pence was on one of the Sunday shows this weekend saying that he thinks it's time for the president to reimpose sanctions in order to kind of prod Russia along. Maybe the Europeans do the same thing. How much bite can those sanctions have? It's been years now. And at this point, then, when the president talks about a ceasefire, what leverage do you think he has over Russia at all to try to kind of prod them in this direction?
President Trump has substantial leverage. One, the sanctions already in place are large and they've done serious damage to the Russian economy, but not enough. I think Secretary of Treasury Bessent would like to introduce more sanctions. And those sanctions could be on the Russian ghost fleet, which is right now illegally transporting Russian oil to markets around the world. We could impose secondary sanctions on the countries buying Russian oil and gas and other products, which would make it very hard for them to do so, which would decrease substantially Russian revenues. We could decide to go after the Russian frozen state assets. There's about $300 billion worth of Russian frozen state assets in the international financial system and give it to Ukraine. All of these things would have a substantial impact on Moscow's ability to wage war. And better than all of those things, President Trump could follow the example he set a couple of weeks ago when he allowed modest shipments of American arms to go to Ukraine by allowing substantial shipments of American arms to Ukraine. If Putin sees arms going to Ukraine, he may decide he cannot take more Ukrainian territory, and he may decide he's willing to agree to terms which would establish the durable peace Trump wants.
Do you think, John, we do, and you mentioned the Ghost Fleet, a story that we highlighted a couple of years ago, actually showed the ships that they bought, which I got from a contact in Cyprus on a map. Do you think that we do actually have the ability to shut them down? Because here's the problem. If we do that, assuming we have the ability, and the price of gasoline goes up in the United States again, that violates something Trump promised, which is to bring down costs for Americans.
I agree that could be a result of this. You can, one, balance national security concerns against economic concerns. Trump has also demonstrated his skill in dealing with the OPEC nations. Maybe he could persuade the Saudis and the Qataris and the Kuwaitis and the Emiratis to increase oil production to offset taking Russian oil off the market. We could also increase American exports of hydrocarbons.
That's a fair point. And I think that the Saudis would be more than happy to throw a little extra oil on the market, don't you?
I think that's, I once served in Saudi Arabia a long time ago. That's a complicated calculation, but I think your assumption is a legitimate one. And again, with skillful diplomacy, again, Trump can be very persuasive, could be achieved.